Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Om Ajnana Om Ajnana Tivrandasya Jnananjala Chalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते देवामृता स्वामी नामने प्रचार पूर्वदक्षिण च भक्ताचार प्रवीणता परार्तापिकायम ऐसे सर्वस्य नमः ओम नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी प्रचास्त देशतारणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद वंशकल्पतरुप्रस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Devotees, we're going to discuss about chapter 14. Uh, Today, specifically, we'll talk about 12th verse on chapter 14. Uh, Before that, we would uh, get some brief introduction to uh, um, chapter 14 because this is a continuation from chapter 13. If we have some connection from chapter 13, it will be very easy to understand chapter 14, where Bhagavan Sri Krishna, this is the only chapter in Bhagavad Gita that I know of that Bhagavan Sri Krishna uh, discusses Sankhya Yoga, specific aspects of it, which is three modes of nature, without Arjuna asking that specific question. Because in chapter 13, he asked a question. There's a continuation. It takes liberty and to describe the entire chapter, chapter 14. So let's go back, a step back into what is the Bhagavad Gita all about. Bhagavad Gita is a life manual for this material body as well as the soul, more importantly for soul. And Bhagavad Gita deals with the five important elements, that is Isvara, the Supreme Lord, Jiva, the living entity, and Prakriti, material nature, Kala, the time, and Karma, the actions and reactions. So out of these five aspects of Bhagavad Gita, discussing in entire Bhagavad Gita, four of them we don't have control of. They were eternal. Whereas the karma actions is where we can have some control on. That's where the entire Bhagavad Gita talks about how to align your actions and based upon your actions, the reactions will come, align them in alignment with the Supreme Lord as a servant of Supreme Lord. And that will free us from these three modes of material nature. That's what we're going to talk about in chapter 14 in particular. And Bhagavad Gita divides into three sections. Chapter 1 to 6, these are 6 chapters devoted to karma yoga, which we all know about karma, actions and reactions, and how to use karma into yoga, that is union with the Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And middle chapters, chapter 7 to chapter 12, Bhagavan Sri Krishna dedicates this purely to bhakti process. I think we went through that a few months ago. These are 6 chapters divided, dedicated to Bhakti Yoga. And then now the third section of Bhagavad Gita, which we are in, 14th chapter, from chapter 13 to chapter 18, it is all dedicated to Jnana, how to achieve Bhakti, right? We are in the modern context, we are all to some extent Jnana. If you are a science or STEM student, math, science, any kind of STEM program, or if you're working in the Western countries or anywhere in the country, world, you are gnani basically, because you need to have that gnana material knowledge. So we work our default mode is gnana. So that's where last 6 chapters Bhagavad Gita dedicated entirely to how do you have bhakti through gnana. So this is actually applicable to all of us. And then, like I said it before, the Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks in this chapter in detail about 3 modes of nature without Arjuna being asking any question about that, because this is very important for Arjuna's understanding. So what is the connection between 13th chapter? 13th chapter, Arjuna asked this specific question about 6 questions. What is the Prakriti? What is the Purusha? Which is the enjoyer, Prakriti is nature, and Kshetram, the field, Kshetragnam, the knower of the field, Jnanam, the knowledge, and Gnayam, the object of knowledge. So Arjuna wanted to specifically mentions this in chapter 13. He wanted to get Bhagavan Sri Krishna's vision about these 6 of them, particularly these 4 of them, because we have discussed in other chapters nature, the Purusha, the enjoyer. The supreme Purusha is the Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and individual Purusha is the individual soul, right? But here, these 4 things are very important. Arjuna asked about in 13 chapters. What is the field and the knower of the field? That is the knower of the field is the individual soul, and the kshetram, the field, and the gnanam, the knowledge, and the gnayam is the object of knowledge. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about it in detail in chapter 13. We will get to the specific aspects. What is the connection from 13th chapter to chapter 14? That will give us a little bit of backdrop understanding. So this, like I mentioned, Arjuna wanted to know Bhagavan Sri Krishna's understanding of the world view through Sankhya philosophy. So here, if you think about the science, what's the difference between science and Sankhya? They are opposite. Science deals with the outer material world. We use the science for comfort, for technology. There's so much rapid comforts happens, cell phone, refrigerator, all of these technologies that we know, right? And nowadays, without cell phone, nothing would happen. This is not the case about 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. So like that, most science-based knowledge gives a material comfort. What is the material comfort leads to? Raga. That is more bondage. Whereas Sankhya philosophy gives the what is the soul's an alignment with Bhagavan Sri Krishna. What is the body? So that will give us a renouncing of the material nature in alignment with the Supreme Bhagavan Krishna. So with our soul, we will go into our eternal constitutional position if you have Sankhya knowledge. So this is both timeless and timely knowledge. because it's timeless, because even 5,000 years ago, it was discussed at the battlefield. What was the setting? Actually, Arjuna had a nervous breakdown. As a warrior, he was about to have enter into war, and he has a nervous breakdown. So basically, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, as a counselor, supreme counselor, he took a counseling session for 45 minutes to an hour. And that's exactly the 18 chapters came out from there. So it is timely too. Even at this juncture is very important, because number one diseases in the world, both in the Western world and elsewhere, is mental illnesses, depression, anxiety. So this is very important. So to know this is very important. This Sankhya knowledge is very timely for us. So what does it do? It gives the attitude of looking at the world, because all of these mental so-called illnesses are because of our expectations, our vision of the world. There's a disparity between the way how we look at the world, what happened to us. Whereas with this Sankhya knowledge, that'll be perfectly in alignment with Bhagavan Sri Krishna's vision. And that's where you would have heaven on earth. But earth, I mean, this material body is temporary, but in this temporary, this is called best use of bad bargain, if you call it, right? Our soul is eternal. It doesn't belong to the material earth. It belongs to the spiritual world, but we are eternally conditioned, one life after the other, 8.4 million life species. To come to the human life is the highest, rarest opportunity. Now we are, as humans, talking about it. So that means that's a very rare opportunity. So we got to utilize this to get ourselves to where we belong. Our soul, true nature is in spiritual world. So that's where we belong. So in Sankhya philosophy, basically it talks about 6 concepts, like 6 questions Arjuna asked before. And that's the bedrock of the philosophy, the explanation in 13 chapters. And then in the 13 chapters, also we'll get to the next slide about the modes. They're also foundational to Sankhya. That's what I discussed in entire 14th chapter. So what do we have through the Sankhya philosophy? We have Krishna's lens, Krishna's vision. Like I have a lens, right? So this is so that I can look at the words better. So similarly, we'll have a lens, right? Even if you don't have external lens, we have a lens inside the eye. So our lens, based upon our vision, our lens, the way we see the world. So would it be better to see the world through Krishna's lens? Absolutely. Bhagavan Sri Krishna's lens, if you adopt that, and your life will be so smooth. And you will, at the end of this life, you would go to the eternal as a servant of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And that's exactly what chapter 14 gives us a better vision. So there are few verses, particularly one verse kind of makes the connection links. Here, 6th to 7th verse, here talks about the modes of material nature. In general Sankhya philosophy, 24 elements, material nature is divided into Pancha Mahabhutas, five senses, and then knowledge acquiring senses, 5 of them, working senses, as I described, 5 of them, and sense of objects like form, sound, smell, etc. They all become 20 elements. And then now we have subtle things called mind, intelligence, ego, and unmanifested three modes of material nature. There's sattva, tamo, rajas. So Bhagavan Krishna introduces this here in this 6th to 7th verse. So, and then 14th chapter he elaborates on these modes. So, and then 25th is a Kshetrajna, which is the knower of the field. So we have my body, I'm the knower of my body. That's my individual body, but I'm not the knower of other people's bodies. Right? Whereas the super soul as a Paramatma, as a 26th here, is the Paramatma exists in all material bodies. So he's the knower of the field of everything, all material world, including all jivas, both the living, dead matter, and also all kind of 8.4 million species that he is a super soul exists in all of them. He knower of all the fields of entire material body, material world. So, and then here, Bhagavan Krishna also introduced 8 to 12 here, the process of acquiring knowledge. There are 20 processes of acquiring knowledge. Most importantly, out of these 20, Bhaktir Avibhicharini, which is unalloyed devotional service, is the key out of these 20 different processes of knowledge. Here, once you have the unalloyed devotional service, you don't need to wait. The other 19 process of knowledge is automatically manifests. Here, in brief, Bhagavan Shri Krishna talks about 20 processes. The important is 16th, constant unalloyed devotional service. So how do you have that? Through approaching a bona fide spiritual master. So on the 6th point. What are the 20 other 18 different knowledge, 20 process of knowledge, 18 process of knowledge, which is humility, pridefulness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, perception of the evil, birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with the family and the rest, even-mindedness to the pleasant and unpleasant events, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for absolute truth. And Bhagavan Krishna talks about here, I declare, Arjuna, I declare to be the knowledge. So anything outside of these are not knowledge. So in this Kali Yuga, we were inundated with ignorance, basically, which is not knowledge, right? Here, we should not be confused with the 24 elements to 20 process of knowledge. This 20 process of knowledge word gives you wisdom so that we can disentangle ourselves from these 24 elements that we discussed about. And this is the verse 1322 is the verse that really Bhagavan Shri Krishna talks about the gunas. Purusha prakriti stohi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karana guna sangasya sad asad toni janmasu. Here, Bhagavan Shri Krishna talks about very nicely the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with the good, evil among various species. So, if you see in the world good, you are looking at the world in the platform of mode of goodness, that is sattva. If you're seeing all the bad violence, you're looking at the world through the lens of tamoguna or rajoguna, rajastamo, right? So that's exactly what Bhagavan Krishna talks about. Prabhupada elaborates in this verse. This verse is very important for understanding of how the living entities transmigrates one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes the dress, right? This change of dress is due to attachment to the material existence through these three modes of material nature. So as long as we have desire, and towards the end of the life, we still have unfulfilled desires based upon what you did in this life, based upon what you want to accomplish that we have not finished, and your consciousness goes there, and boom, you take the next life. As long as he is captivated by these false manifestations, he has to continue transmigrating from one body now. That's exactly what in 22 verses talks about, and Prabhupada explaining. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. He is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to raise, therefore, above these three modes of material nature and become situated in the transcendental position through unalloyed devotional service, which is Avya Vicharani Bhakti. So one has to rise, therefore, above the three modes of material nature to become situated in transcendental position. That is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will obligate him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since the time immemorial. It's not happening this life. It's been there for life, birth after birth, and boom, I took this birth. But he has to change that conception through Krishna consciousness. If we change this conception, this last sentence, and how you change that conception is exactly what we're talking about every day. We have Bhagavad Gita discusses in temple, get yourself in the class. And that's how you change. That change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative source. That is the key. And Prabhupada has created, now we have more than 1,000 centers all over the world, ISKCON centers, where we talk about this authoritative knowledge. What better authoritative knowledge could be knowledge that we are talking about, Bhagavad Gita as it is spoken by Bhagavan Sri Krishna to his pure devotee Arjuna and translating this to English by his pure devotee Srila Prabhupada. Right? That is the authoritative source. So the best example here is Arjuna hearing the signs of God from Krishna and Prabhupada translating that knowledge to us. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately to the extent he will listen, understand, as he reduces his long desire to dominate the material nature, he comes to enjoy the spiritual happiness. Because to the extent we hear, we understand, to the extent we change through the authoritative knowledge, to the extent we situate ourselves in spiritual happiness. That is, we align ourselves to Krishna consciousness. In Vedic mantra, it is said that that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. So to the extent we grow in Bhagavan Sri Krishna's knowledge, to that extent we enjoy external blissful life because you are in association with Bhagavan Sri Krishna. He is above moral goodness. He is a Suddha Sattva, right? He is God himself. He doesn't touch any modes, touch by any modes. So that is where you go into that association. So due to his desire to lord it over the material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances, like we all have, under the influence of material desires, the entity is born sometimes as demigod, like higher planetary systems, like Brahma is our supreme demigod in this material world, Brahmaloka. Sometimes man, a beast, a bird, a worm, or even a bug, small bug. So this is going on time immemorial. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be master of the circumstances. And yet he is under the influence of material nature through these three modes. And that is what, once you learn that, you put that into action, then gradually your knowledge, all the what do you call ignorance is peeled off like onion is peeling off. You have pure knowledge comes in, Krishna's knowledge. So here in the 14th chapter, that's the connection from 13th chapter. Now in the 14th chapter, Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks from verses 1 to 4, how we are placed in the material nature it talks about. So, and then 5, Bhagavan Sri Krishna introduces modes, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna from 6th to 9th verse explains the characteristics of these modes. So in the 5th, material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. And when the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So we need to see which mode you want to get conditioned by. And then Bhagavan Krishna explains in this. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating because it has a knowledge, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. And those situated in that mode becomes conditioned by the sense of happiness and knowledge, is bound to material fruitive actions. The mode of passion in the 7th verse, Bhagavan Krishna talks about, mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. O son of Kunti, and because of this, embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. And then 8th verse talks about mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, sleepiness, which bind the conditional soul. So in the verse 9, Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about, O Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. Passion conditions one to fruitive actions. And ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. What a beautifully it talks about in 9th verse. Mode of goodness also conditions to happiness. You want to be happy. Passion conditions to fruitive actions. Ignorance covered by one's knowledge binds to madness. And the 10th verse it talks about, sometimes the modes of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the mode of passion and ignorance. O son of Bharata, sometimes the mode of passion defeats the goodness and ignorance, and at other times ignorance defeats the goodness and passion. In this way, there's always competition. So is your 3 modes as competing. It is also varies from which day and night. Also, for example, at night is more of ignorance, tamoguna, and in the early hours, Brahma Muhurta, between 3 to 7, is you have more of goodness, right? Sattvaguna. And then during the daytime is Rajoguna, more of passion. And the 11th verse, Bhagavan Krishna talks about manifestations of more of goodness can be experienced when all gates of the body are eliminated by knowledge. Right? This is the verse discussed yesterday. And the chapter 13, we looked at the 20 process of knowledge. So if you have all the 9 gates of our body, right? The nose, mouth, ears, eyes, right? Genitals, anus. These are all 9 gates of the body. So they're all eliminated with the knowledge, right? Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about 12, these 20 process knowledge. More importantly, the 16th one we talked about, unalloyed devotional service, avvebhicharani bhakti, through surrendering oneself to through Guru, right? About the spiritual knowledge. And we also discussed that. So that is the key for the mode of goodness. Whereas in chapter verse 12 that we want to talk about today, lobaha pravithir arambaha karmanam asamana spruha rajasi ethani jayante vivride bharatasabha. Verse 12. One in the mode of passion is never satisfied with the position he has already acquired. He hankers to increase his position. So entire world in this verse, Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about a mode of passion. If your mode is mode of passion, that's how you operate, that's how your lens is. So you always hanker for more. You achieve something, you want to achieve the next level, or the next level. This unending cycle of achievement process. Prabhupada translates here, O chief of Bharata, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptom of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, uncontrollable desire, hankering develops. These are all qualities of passion. You want to have more fruitive activity, intense endeavor, uncontrolled desire, hankering. If he wants to construct a residential home, he tries his best to have a big palatial home, as if he would be able to reside in that house eternally. And he develops a great hankering for the sense gratification. Prabhupada gives a beautiful example there. So here, if you think about, this is a rendering, a metaphor for these three modes. So one of the metaphor could be the ropes or a gear that you go in the car, right? The soul, surrounded by the consciousness, this consciousness, the ropes were bind to the material nature through different three modes, sattva, rajas, tamo, gunas. So similarly, you can also have another metaphor as a gear. Gear car goes to, on the driving, you have a driving mode, gear. Right? When you back up, you have reverse mode. So you can change the gear, but you have to slow down to change it. So when you are in a certain mode, you automatically keep going in that mode. For example, if you are in sattva mode, that is where you're operating your gear, you're going, and that is your momentum. Whereas a rajas mode, that is your momentum. And tamas, that's your momentum. So through this, you will learn through Sankhya, what is my mode mostly. So most of the people, where our mode is rajas tamas. So how do we change this to sattva guna? From there, you slowly bring Bhagavan Sri Krishna into your life, and that will become bhakti yoga. So sattva is a clarity. It is like an illuminating, just like we read before, the 11th verse. If your 9 gates were illuminated with knowledge, that gives you clarity of which one is bhakti, which one is not bhakti, which one is process of Bhagavan Sri Krishna's vision, which one is my vision, called hankering, my vision of lording over material nature, rather than Bhagavan Krishna vision of serving Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And similarly, rajas is intense activities. We just learned that you want to hanker and you want to always doing things to acquire more. And tamas is whereas the lethargy, you want to escape, right? Watching movie, social media, all of this is tamas. And sleeping hours together, right? 10, 12 hours people sleep. That is tamas. So in 10th verse, where how one mode triumph over the other mode we learned previously, right? And then from 13 to 14 and to 20th, the effects of each mode, short term, long term, medium, they're going to be discussing in the future classes. So that'll be really interesting to go through those classes. And then the 21 to 25 explains, Bhagavan Sri Krishna explains how intricately and inexplicably these modes are bind us all to the material nature. That is the key. You need to have that knowledge too, so that you would more gearing ourselves towards the bhakti solution. That is 1426. Bhagavan Sri Krishna comes to that point. That is a very important verse. We can also look into that. Mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatithya tetyam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So here again, gunas, Bhagavan Sri Krishna connects. How that you have to connect is one who engages in full devotional service. Avyabhicharani bhakti. Without having any other process for us to think about. Like I have this and I have that demigod, I'm going to praise for this, and I have my own psychology, I have my own counselor, whatever that is, right? We have all of those things. So here we continue completely devote ourselves to devotional service, depend on Bhagavan Sri Krishna. That's called analalara devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, and at once transcend the mode of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. That is a self. That is called you're happy in your own self. So if you think about that, that is the platform that we all need to be in the unalloyed devotional service. What are the process for the devotional service? There are 9 different processes for devotional service in 7th chapter. Prahlad Maharaj discusses in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we also have Srimad Bhagavatam classes in ISKCON temples all over the world, even in LA temple. If you are new, please log into ISKCON temple site between 7:30 to 7:45 until 8:30. We would discuss each sloka from Srimad Bhagavatam. So in reference to Prahlad Maharaj, we're talking about 9 process of devotional service. How do we have devotional service? That is Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Atma Nivedanam. So Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So Shravanam is listening. We just discussed, Prabhupada discussed in the purport that get ourselves to authoritative source of knowledge. That is ISKCON temples, right? We discuss about Bhagavan Sri Krishna's Bhagavad Gita as it is. So once you have the Shravanam, and then you have Kirtanam, that is chant. One of the, this Yuga Dharma, Kali Yuga's Yuga Dharma, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna, Bhagavan Sri Krishna's, himself came as a devotee 500 years ago to explain about what's the devotional process. And Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu, Kirtanam, chanting holy names is the number one way you can associate with Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Here we have holy names, Bhagavan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propagated, and our Acharya, founder Acharya, ISKCON founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada has brought it to all over the world. Hare Krishna Mahamantra. How do you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? We have beads, right? 108 beads. With this, the head bead, you start from there, then chant. So count, and the way you chant is in Brahma Muhurta. There's before an hour and a half before sunrises. So Brahma Muhurta is mode of goodness. There's Sattva, we just discussed previously. The time is very calm, is Sattva mode of time. And from Sattva mode of time, you bring in Krishna into your life when you start a day. And that's where you chant with this bead, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's the one count. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Like that, you chant 118 times in this one round. That makes one round in the chanting in the mala, Tulsi mala. So like that, you start from one round if you're a beginner, and you can graduate it up to minimum 12, minimum 16 rounds a day. That's why when you get serious about Bhakti Yoga, you graduate that to 16 rounds a day in the Brahma Muhurta. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to chant. You're taking time nicely. And Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, also discussed about how to chant. That's the key also, very important information that we need to have. And Prabhupada says, you just chant through your mouth, your tongue, and listen. Chant and listen. And also Prabhupada talks about chant attentively. When you chant attentively, you listen attentively, and automatically the mind will come to your chanting. And also another sense, you're touching the Tulsi beads. So there are about four senses are working right there, right? Your touching sensation, and then you have hearing, your chanting, and also your mind, the important sense organ, comes to in unison. So that will become your mind your mantra goes into your mind, and eventually with that attention, concentration, attentive chanting and listening, and mind is also listening, will get you to seamless chanting. Mind is in mantra, mantra is in mind. There's a seamless mixture of mantra and mind. And that is called real powerful chanting. So we chant minimum 60 rounds in the morning. If you're a new person, just start with one round. And that is the important aspect in Kali Yuga, is the Bhakti Yoga. Important aspect of Bhakti Yoga is chanting the holy names. And what better time you can chant is the Brahma Muhurta. So for you to get up and start in the Brahma Muhurta, you had to go to bed early in the night. So Prabhupada also discusses that you need to have minimum 6 hours of sleep. So any more sleep you are doing, we're wasting our time. So instead of sleeping, go into Tamoguna, get up and then chant. And get ourselves into Sattva Guna in the morning, then the Brahma Muhurta time, starting our day. So we'll chant 16 rounds we talked about, That's the one important aspect of developing Abhyabhicharani Bhakti. That is bhakti in the form of unalloyed devotional service. And Prabhupada also gave 4 regulated principles. So this will give us into Sattva, bring us to Sattva Guna, this with 4 regulated principles. That is, one is no meat eating, because Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about in 13th chapter, other chapters too, that I am seed-giving Father for all living entities, right? So if he is seed-giving Father, all living entities, so we don't have right to kill other animals for our sense gratification. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna also talks about the important things that you can do to have in the bhakti process is also offer anything that you would consume, and that will become prasadam, that spiritualizes. In 926 sloka, it talks about patram pushpam phalam toyam yomya bhakta pravachanti. So with bhakti, either you can give patram, flower, offer to flower with unalloyed devotional service. Patram is a leaf. Tulasi leaf is more important for Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And then patram is a flower, any nice smelling flower. Phalam, any fruit. Toyam, water. So any of this, anybody can get water, fresh water, offer it to Krishna and drink. And that became spiritualizes. That became prasadam, and then you drink prasadam by thinking about Bhagavan Sri Krishna. That's how you slowly, you spiritualize your material activities. You made best use of your bad bargain as a spirit soul conditioned in this body and living in this material world. And next important thing is that no gambling and no illegitimate sex, only sex within the marriage. And Krishna also talks about 10th chapter, he is sex contrary to, is sex in alignment with the religious knowledge, not contrary to the religious principles. That is, sex within the marriage. And then more importantly, that no substances, any kind of mind-altering substances. If you think about that, the entire world runs on gambling, slaughterhouses, meat eating, and then sense enjoyment, drinking, dhumapana. So when you get yourself cleaned up and you come to a Sattva-guna platform, that's a human platform, because you're putting all of these things into body, you're subhuman platform. Right? So for us to get this human platform and then chant in Brahma Muhurta in the morning and associate with the devotees who are in this process, one of the best way to associate is in the Bhagavad Gita class, just like we are associating. And also Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning. And also they have special events. Most importantly, next month we have Ratha Yatra. This is one of the biggest events of the year, where the Lord get himself out of the temple, go and see everyone in the public. The people who don't have any access, who don't have any knowledge about Supreme Lord, Lord Jagannatha. Jagannatha takes himself to them so that they can see him with the wide eyes Lord Jagannatha has. So why Lord Jagannath has wide eyes? Because he's looking at you, even a small good act you did, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the form of Lord Jagannath, he makes it big. So with that one small act, whatever you did, and he sees you and he takes you if you want to take journey to go with him. And that's why Bhagavan Shri Krishna in the form of Lord Jagannatha comes to everybody in Los Angeles. And that will be a great way to associate with Bhagavan Shri Krishna in the form of Archa Vigraha, Lord Jagannath. So I think if you all want to know more about that, you can get a flyer, you can get the information, you can also participate. How you can participate. And the beauty thing about Radha Yatra is where you will have access to pull the cart in big cart where the Lord Jagannath, his sister Subhadra, and Baladev were pulled on the streets. You can also participate in there. And they have a nice prasadam, which is given freely, and they have a nice discourse and a lot of Bharatanatyam, a lot of dances. They're all in the glorifying Lord Bhagavan Shri Krishna, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. So this is the bhakti process. How do we take our bhakti into daily life? And this is what 1426 Bhagavan Shri Krishna talks about. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the more material nature, and thus comes to level of Brahman. So that is the Brahman level, is the pure all-out devotional service. With that, devotees, thank you for giving me the opportunities to share a little bit of whatever I learned through the course. All my knowledge comes from all the acharyas, right from Prabhupada, all my gurus, and all my everyone devotees are my gurus. So I learned from them. Anything good I learned from them. Anything bad in terms of presentation, this all belongs to me. Please excuse me for any mistakes that I have made. With that, I'm going to sign off. If there's any questions, and Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol.